Eric here, welcome to the Perkins Builder Brothers channel. Today on our project we're going to be building some walls, and we're going to sheathe those walls while they're laying flat on the subfloor like we usually do. Now, I've got 5 great tips for you about sheathing walls so that your walls will be strong and sturdy in the finish. Okay, before we get going, let's talk about wall sheathing for just a second, because there's several different kinds. There's OSB, which is oriented strand board. That's what we're going to be using today, 4x8 sheets of it. There is plywood, which is different than OSB. It is actually made of layers of wood that are glued together. There is zip board, which is different from both of those because it has like a sprayed on vapor barrier, and then you seal the joints with tape. But today we're going to be using OSB, which is kind of the cheaper option, but it's very sturdy if it's installed correctly. Tip number 1, we use the sheathing to straighten all of our wall studs as we nail the sheathing to the studs. We do this by marking our layout on the sheathing, 16-inch center or 24-inch center, whichever it is, and then we pull the studs in line with those marks before we shoot them in the center of the stud. Okay, tip number 2 is to always gap the rows of your plywood. I like to leave at least a 3/16 gap. That way when the plywood gets some moisture on it, which it will, and it swells, it has a little room to grow before it hits the next sheet and tends to buckle. Tip number 3 is to set the depth stop of your nail gun. And our nail gun is really easy to do this because it has a screw type adjustment. And you want the nail heads to sit about flush on top of the sheeting. You don't want them to blow halfway through or all the way through the sheeting because you will lose a lot of strength in your wall if the nails are set like this. Shoot to sheeting, shoot to sheeting. Okay, tip number 4 is we like to use a heavy-duty router set up with a flush trim bit to cut out all of our window and door openings. This gets it nice and neat, and it's also a lot faster. Okay, tip number 5 is to stagger your rows of sheathing where it's possible. For instance, if you were to start one row with an 8-foot sheet, maybe start the next row with a 4-foot sheet so that the joints are staggered. This makes for a much stronger wall because your joints don't line up on one stud, they're alternating. Hey, if you're gonna plywood your walls while they're on the floor, don't forget to nail one of your plates to a chalk line and then square the wall before you plywood it.